Now over in the main options tab, these are pretty much the options for intruder, not the payload items, but the overall intruder options, how you want this entire tool to perform. Now these first two you usually want to leave as checked. This update content length header, what this does is if your payloads have various links, then what you can do is, for example, and they usually do, you want to leave this checked because if you keep the same length in all your requests and your payloads actually have different lengths, then it's first of all going to cause performance issues, and B, you're going to have a lot of problems communicating with your server because it's going to say, okay, what the heck are you even trying to tell me here? So you usually want to leave that checked. This set connection close, what this does is it lets intruder update the connection header, and you also want to keep this checked for best performance, so don't really ever mess with these unless you really need to. The request engine, this is just the same as the splitter in the scanner. How many threads do you want to use? You should wait a little bit of time so you don't bog down the server and it doesn't crash before we find anything good. And if you want to throttle it, start time, all that stuff, self-explanatory. The attack results, and actually the rest of these settings are pretty important and pretty cool as well. The attack results are just what information do you want to log from each attempt. So whenever we started our attempt and it showed us all that information from each one, this is where you can say, okay, this is what I want you to log, this is what I want you to show me and keep track of. Now these grep, match, and extract, and payloads, these are incredibly handy too, and a lot of people don't use them that often, but I'm not really sure why. I guess they just don't really understand them. Who knows? But this grep match, if you ever want to check for a specific expression in your response, so let's say for example that you're trying to perform some kind of SQL injection. Well, what you're looking for in the response is usually a word like error or let's find an SQL. So if these two keywords are ever in the response, that's how you know that there's probably a SQL vulnerability and you can inject some SQL code into it. So that's what that does. It looks for a specific expression in the response. Now this extract is a little bit different. So what this does is if you ever want to extract a bit of data from the response, then you can pull it out using regular expressions. And regular expressions are kind of beyond the scope of this lesson, but if you know them, then you can use this tool. So say for example that you wanted to crawl a website, and I don't know, let's say it was like a movie website. So on each page you gave the ID of that movie, and let's say there were 1,000, and you went movie ID equals 1, it was like Avatar. Movie ID equals 2, it was like I don't know, Good Will Hunting. Movie ID equals 3 is another movie. So what you could do is for your payloads, you can just cycle through a list of ID numbers, and then whenever you wanted to extract the data, you can extract wherever the title was. And a big tractor is driving through my house right now, but that's what it means for each response. You could put out something like the page title and it would be like the movie name. So that's what that does. Now grep payloads, if you ever want to check if your response, in other words what you get back from the server, matches what you passed into it, in other words your payload, then you can do that here. Now why would you want to check that whatever you threw into the server comes back out? Well, say that you were testing for cross-site scripting. This means that you can test that whenever you pass in some kind of word, if the server spits it back out to you, then you know you probably have a cross-site scripting vulnerability. So again, that's what grep payloads does. And redirections, this is how pretty much you want your intruder to behave whenever the server tries to redirect you. And we actually already saw that. Whenever we logged into this website, this is login.php. Now, that one time we logged in successfully, it tried to redirect us to portal.php. Do you remember that? So sometimes whenever you log in, it takes you to your account, profile, portal, whatever. And this setting right here is saying, okay, do you want me to follow those? Do you want me to follow those only if they're on the same site, only if they're in my project scope? And that's pretty much how you do that. So I'm just going to leave never for right now. And that is the basics of all the settings: target, positions, payload, options. So now not only do we know how to use Intruder, what it is, but we also know how to configure it to get the best performance and power out of it as possible.